The blade glided across the sharpening stone with deliberate, measured strokes. Staff Sergeant Blake Thompson nearly passed by the storage facility without a second thought, but the rhythmic sound made him stop. Through the partially open door, he saw the quiet logistics coordinator sitting on the concrete floor, owning an edge on a weapon that definitely wasn't standard military issue. His casual comment died before leaving his lips when he noticed the carved indentations along the knife's back edge. 13 precise marks, each distinctly different, not ornamental, not accidental, but methodical, a record, a count. In that instant, everything he believed about Specialist Hannah Rivers crumbled. The facility's emergency siren pierced the silence before he could speak. Which corner of the globe are you watching from today? If you appreciate stories about the individuals who serve behind the scenes, the unsung heroes who never seek the spotlight, we invite you to subscribe. The morning sun climbed over the rocky peaks surrounding Forward Base Echo, casting light through particles of dust that seemed perpetually suspended in this remote sector of the operational zone. The installation, comprised of prefabricated buildings, fortified positions, and security fencing, was already alive with movement despite the early hour. Within the logistics center, Specialist Hannah Rivers systematically tallied medical supplies, her hands working with quiet efficiency as she recorded inventory numbers. Mid-30s, with unremarkable features that registered as neither distinctive nor memorable, she kept her auburn hair strictly regulation in a tight bun. No personal photographs adorned her workspace. No individual touches personalized her living quarters. In 10 months at Base Echo, she had cultivated no intimate friendships, participated in no gambling sessions, shared no memories of civilian life. Her job performance was exceptional, perhaps suspiciously so. Supply requests processed without delay, stock counts perpetually accurate, maintenance schedules never missed, the type of reliability that rendered her functionally invisible. Through the logistics center's entrance came the recognizable voice of Staff Sergeant Blake Thompson, carrying across the facility with the natural confidence of someone who had completed 4 combat deployments and returned every squad member home safely. That was when I informed headquarters that if they expected us to neutralize that compound, they needed to supply actual firepower instead of these inadequate weapons. Thompson was explaining to 5 members of his tactical squad who responded with appreciative laughter. 3 hours later, magnificent result. A helicopter delivered a container of heavy machine guns directly to our landing zone. Specialist Garcia, the most recent addition to Thompson's unit, spotted Hannah and offered a courteous acknowledgement. She responded with a professional smile that vanished immediately when she resumed her inventory work. Thompson eventually approached her station, dropping a requisition document with the entitled manner of someone accustomed to having his missions prioritized. Need these supplies by 0500 tomorrow. Mission essential, he stated, dispensing with courtesy. Certainly, Sergeant Hannah responded, her tone neither submissive nor confrontational. I will handle it right away. Thompson gave her the type of perfunctory smile reserved for personnel who existed solely to support his objectives. Much appreciated. Must be comfortable and quiet back here with the administrative work while we are out there taking fire. His squad chuckled approvingly. Hannah's expression remained unchanged. Simply fulfilling my duties, Sergeant. She began inputting his request into the computer system, her fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced speed. Exactly, Thompson said, already turning to leave. Must be why they compensate us identically, right? The remark required no response, merely another reminder of the hierarchy separating genuine soldiers from support personnel. As Thompson and his team departed, Specialist Garcia glanced back, perhaps sensing the subtle sting of his sergeant's dismissiveness. For just an instant, he noticed Hannah observing their exit. Something in her focus and concentrated intensity inconsistent with her clerical role made him hesitate. But when she looked up and their eyes met, the impression disappeared so completely he questioned whether he had imagined it. That evening, after her shift ended, Hannah returned to her private quarters, one of the limited advantages of being female senior personnel at a remote installation. She secured the door, conducted a discreet inspection of the nearly invisible thread she had positioned across the threshold that morning, and confirmed no one had entered during her absence. Only then did she reach beneath her cot and retrieve a small leather pouch wrapped in protective cloth and bound with a simple cord. She did not open it, merely verified its presence with the routine of someone checking their wallet or keys, a ritual of confirmation. Outside, the wind strengthened, carrying early signs of a dust storm that would halt all operations by sunrise. The dust storm arrived with surprising intensity, forcing all personnel into shelters and canceling every scheduled operation. By nightfall, the base buzzed with the restless energy of soldiers denied their purpose. Most congregated in the recreation facility, where impromptu competitions of card games and strength contests provided distraction from the howling winds beyond. Staff Sergeant Thompson, frustrated by the postponement of his reconnaissance mission, walked the perimeter paths, his face protected against the occasional gusts of sand that penetrated the base's defenses. The mission had been time-critical. Intelligence indicated a high-value target would be moving through a nearby settlement within the next 48 hours. Now, weather had intervened, and nothing remained but to wait. As he turned the corner near the equipment storage, Thompson noticed the door partially open, a narrow beam of light spilling onto the packed earth. Security procedures required all structures to remain sealed during dust storms. Annoyed by the oversight, he approached to secure it. The sound reached him before he fully opened the door. A rhythmic scraping whisper repeated at perfect intervals. Shh. Inside, seated cross-legged on a tarp spread across the floor, was Specialist Rivers. A small leather kit lay open beside her, revealing a collection of precision instruments. In her hands, she held a combat knife and whetstone, drawing the blade across the stone in a perfect, practiced motion that spoke of years of repetition. Thompson paused in the doorway, momentarily struck by the incongruity of the scene, the unassuming logistics coordinator, and the decidedly non-regulation weapon in her possession. The knife was not military standard, at least not from any conventional kit. Its design was refined but practical, with a darkened blade that absorbed rather than reflected the limited light. Playing warrior specialist, Thompson asked, letting the door close behind him. Hannah did not startle, did not even glance up, just continued the methodical sharpening with unbroken rhythm. Might want to stick to equipment that matches your clearance level, Thompson continued, irritated by being ignored. That looks like serious hardware for someone who counts bandages all day. When she still did not respond, Thompson stepped closer, his annoyance growing. That is not standard issue gear. Where did you even acquire? The words died in his throat as he finally saw what his positioning had concealed before. The knife's spine. Along its length ran a series of notches, not manufacturing marks or decorative elements, but deliberate hand-carved indentations, 13 of them, each unique, some deep and straight, others angled. One appeared to have some kind of inlay, copper or brass, catching the light differently than the steel around it. Thompson had seen kill markers before, unofficial tallies some soldiers kept despite regulations prohibiting the practice. But this was different. These were not hasty scratches made with field tools. Each notch was precise, following some system of meaning beyond simple counting. A memory surfaced from Thompson's second deployment. A whispered conversation between his commander and a visiting general. Something about a special program, operators who moved independently. Shadow assets, they had called them. Phantoms embedded in regular units. Their identities known only to the highest levels of command. "You are Shadow Division," Thompson whispered, the realization hitting like a physical blow. Hannah finally looked up, her eyes meeting his without confirmation or denial. In that moment of silence, Thompson reassessed everything about her, the perfect posture that had nothing to do with military formality and everything to do with combat readiness. The way she always positioned herself with clear views to all entrances, how she never seemed surprised by anything. How many installations, he asked, understanding now that base echo was not her first assignment. Before she could answer, if she intended to answer at all, the base alarm shattered the moment. 3 short blasts followed by a long wail, perimeter breach, communications blackout. Hannah was on her feet in a fluid motion, the knife already secured in a sheath at her ankle that Thompson had not noticed before. Her entire demeanor had transformed, the administrative awkwardness replaced by focused readiness. "They are using the storm for cover," she said, her voice now crisp with authority. "This is not a random assault. They are hunting specific targets. How could you possibly know that?" Thompson demanded even as he moved to retrieve his sidearm from its holster. Because Hannah replied, moving toward the door with a predator's economy of motion. "I am one of those targets, and now so are you." Thompson struggled to process this revelation as they moved through the swirling sand toward the communications building. Gunfire erupted from multiple positions around the base, Discipline 3, round bursts rather than the spray and pray tactics of typical insurgents. "These are not locals," Thompson shouted above the wind. "Too coordinated. Private contractors," Hannah confirmed. "Probably Last Vengeance. They specialize in deniable operations in conflict zones." As they approached the communications hub, 3 figures in tactical gear appeared through the dust storm, moving with military precision. Before Thompson could react, Hannah pulled him behind a supply container, her movements fluid and decisive. "My team is on the other side of the compound," Thompson said, checking his sidearm. "We need to regroup." "No time," Hannah replied. "Command structure will be their primary target. We need to secure communications and warn the others." When Thompson hesitated, she added, "Trust me, Sergeant. This is what I do." The transformation before him was complete. The forgettable logistics coordinator had vanished entirely, replaced by someone who radiated lethal competence. Without waiting for his response, she retrieved a small device from her pocket, pulled a pin, and rolled it toward the approaching figures. A bright flash and disorienting bang gave them the seconds they needed. Hannah moved with shocking speed, neutralizing the first attacker with a throat strike before he could recover. The second managed to raise his weapon, but Thompson was there, driving his combat knife between the man's ribs with practiced efficiency. The third attacker retreated, raising his rifle, but Hannah was already closing the distance. She deflected the barrel with one hand while drawing her notched blade with the other, ending the threat with a single precise motion. Thompson stared at her, re-evaluating everything he thought he knew. "Who the hell are you really?" "The person who is going to help you keep your team alive," she responded, already moving toward the communications building. "But first we need to understand what we are facing." Inside the communications hub, they found 2 technicians dead and equipment systematically damaged. Hannah examined the pattern of destruction with practiced eyes. They knew exactly what to target. She said this was not about shutting down communications. It was about isolating specific channels. How would they? Inside intelligence, she interrupted, already working to restore a backup system. "This attack has been planned for weeks, probably since that last convoy of equipment specialists arrived." As she worked, Thompson processed what he was witnessing. Shadow Division. "I thought it was just a rumor. Deep cover operators embedded in regular military units as a fail-safe." Hannah's hands never paused on the equipment. "The program exists to prevent exactly this scenario. Installations like Echo hold more strategic value than most realize. We are positioned along 3 different supply routes that support classified operations in country." "And the knife?" Thompson asked, the image of those 13 notches still vivid in his mind. "Those marks. Each one represents an interdiction," she said, finally getting a damaged radio to emit static operations that never happened officially. "The variations in the marks are a code, date, location, threat type." "You have done this before," Thompson said, not a question. 13 times, she confirmed, establishing a secure channel, but never with this level of opposition. "They are well equipped and know the layout. We need your team's firepower." For the first time in his military career, Staff Sergeant Blake Thompson found himself deferring to someone else's tactical assessment without question. When they finally made contact with his scattered team members, he silenced their confusion about why he was taking direction from the logistics coordinator with 4 simple words. "She is not support. Listen, she is not support. Listen." Those 5 words transformed the dynamics instantly. Thompson's team, scattered across different defensive positions throughout the base, fell silent on the comm line. Specialist Garcia was the first to respond. "Copy that, Sarge." Awaiting instructions. Hannah did not waste the moment of trust. "Rodriguez, Garcia, secure the north perimeter. Wilson, reinforce the medical bay. They will target the wounded next. Patterson, I need you on overwatch from the water tower. Report any movement from the eastern approach." Each team member acknowledged without hesitation, the unmistakable tone of combat authority in her voice overriding any questions about her identity or rank. "They are hunting for something specific," Hannah continued, her fingers flying over the communications equipment as she attempted to establish contact with the nearest friendly base. "This is not just an attack, it is an extraction operation." "What could they possibly want from Base Echo?" Thompson asked, checking his ammunition and securing the communications room entrance. "We are just a supply waypoint." Hannah paused, weighing operational security against tactical necessity. "Last week's diplomatic convoy dropped off more than just personnel. There is a hard drive containing intelligence on deep cover assets throughout the region. Command was supposed to retrieve it today, and now these mercenaries want it instead." Thompson concluded. "Where is it secured?" "Command bunker subsection C. We need to move there immediately." As they prepared to leave the communications building, Thompson could not help but ask the question that had been burning since he discovered her true nature. "How long have you been Shadow Division?" Hannah checked the magazine in her sidearm before answering. 9 years, 6 different assignments. "But you should know we do not use that name among ourselves." "What do you call it then?" The corner of her mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. "We do not call it anything. We just do the job." Outside, the dust storm was beginning to abate, which would only make their movement more visible to enemy forces. Hannah led the way, moving in a crouch from one position of cover to the next with the practiced precision of someone who had navigated hostile territory countless times before. Thompson followed her lead, observing her tactics with professional appreciation. This was no logistics coordinator mimicking combat techniques. Every movement, every decision on timing and positioning spoke of years of specialized training and real-world application. They were halfway to the command bunker when gunfire erupted from their right flank. Thompson felt the burn of a bullet grazing his upper arm as he dove for cover behind a concrete barrier. Hannah was already returning fire, her shots measured and precise. 2 o'clock behind the fuel drums, she called out, ejecting a spent magazine and slapping in a fresh one without looking. 3 hostiles, at least one with thermal imaging. Thompson keyed his comm unit. "Patterson, you got eyes on the fuel depot?" Affirmative came the immediate response. "I see them taking the shot." A moment later, the crack of a sniper rifle echoed across the compound, 1 hostile down. "Good shot," Hannah said, already calculating their next move. "We need a diversion to clear the path to the command bunker." Thompson glanced around, assessing their options. The generator shed. "If we overload the circuits, we could trigger the emergency systems." Lights out across the compound. Hannah nodded her approval. "Cover me." Without waiting for acknowledgement, she darted from cover, moving in a zigzag pattern toward the nearby utility shed. Thompson provided suppressive fire, forcing the remaining hostiles to keep their heads down. Patterson's sniper rifle spoke again, eliminating another threat. Inside the shed, Hannah bypassed the safety protocols with practiced efficiency, rerouting power connections in a way that would overload the main grid without damaging essential systems. 30 seconds of work and she was back outside, rejoining Thompson behind the concrete barrier. "When the lights go, we move directly to the command bunker entrance," she instructed. "Your team should converge there once they have secured their assigned positions." Thompson relayed the instructions to his scattered squad members as they waited for the diversion to take effect. In the brief moment of calm, he studied Hannah's profile, still trying to reconcile the unassuming logistics coordinator with the tactical operator beside him. "Those notches on your blade," he said quietly. "They are not just operations, they are lives you have saved, are not they?" Before she could answer, the base was plunged into darkness as the generator shut down. Emergency lighting kicked in seconds later, bathing everything in a dim red glow that would play havoc with night vision equipment. Now, Hannah ordered, and they were moving. They reached the command bunker entrance just as Thompson's team began to arrive from their various positions. Rodriguez and Garcia approached from the north, while Wilson reported he had secured the medical bay with the help of the base doctor. Patterson maintained his overwatch position, providing crucial intelligence on enemy movements. The heavy steel door to the command bunker was designed to withstand direct attacks, but when they reached it, they found it already compromised. The electronic lock had been expertly bypassed. The door left slightly ajar. "They are already inside," Hannah whispered, drawing her notched blade. "Breach and clear standard formation." Thompson signaled his team, and they moved into position with practiced coordination. Hannah took point without discussion, her expertise in this specific type of operation evident to everyone. Thompson flanked her with Rodriguez covering their rear. The interior of the command bunker was eerily quiet. Bodies of the regular security detail lay where they had fallen. Precision shots to vital areas indicating professional execution. The team moved deeper into the facility, passing through the main command center toward the secure storage areas in subsection C. They heard the voices before they saw the intruders. 3 men speaking in hushed tones as they worked on breaching the final security door that protected the most classified materials. The language was not local. Eastern European, Thompson thought, confirming Hannah's assessment of professional mercenaries rather than insurgents. Hannah signaled the team to hold position as she assessed the situation. 3 hostiles, all heavily armed, working with specialized equipment to bypass the security on the vault door. They had perhaps 2 minutes before the mercenaries would succeed. She outlined the assault plan with hand signals, assigning targets and establishing the sequence of attack. Thompson marveled at how naturally his team accepted her leadership, the earlier skepticism completely erased by her evident expertise. The attack, when it came, was swift and coordinated. Hannah moved first, crossing the distance to the nearest hostile with supernatural quietness before neutralizing him with her blade. Thompson and Rodriguez engaged the second target simultaneously, while Garcia took down the third before he could bring his weapon to bear. The entire confrontation lasted less than 10 seconds, ending with all 3 mercenaries incapacitated and Thompson's team securing the area without casualties. Hannah immediately moved to examine the vault door, assessing the damage done to the security system. They nearly had it, she observed, studying the specialized bypass equipment the mercenaries had been using. Another minute, maybe less. As Rodriguez and Garcia secured the prisoners, Thompson joined Hannah at the vault door. "Can it still be secured?" She nodded. "The physical lock is intact. They were working on the electronic systems." She hesitated, then added, "We should verify the contents are still secure." Thompson understood her meaning. With her level of clearance, Hannah could access the vault, but doing so would reveal her true identity to his entire team. It was a significant operational security risk, but one that the situation demanded. "Do it," he confirmed. "My team is solid. Nothing that happens here will be discussed outside this room." Hannah entered a lengthy code into the secondary keypad, then placed her palm against a biometric scanner that Thompson had not even realized was part of the door mechanism. A series of heavy metallic thunks signaled the disengagement of the locking system, and the vault door swung open. Inside, racks of classified materials lined the walls. Hannah moved directly to a specific storage container, verifying its contents with quick efficiency. Secure, she confirmed, visible relief in her expression. If they had obtained this, it would have compromised over 30 deep-cover operatives across 4 countries. As they re-established the vault security, Thompson could not help but ask the question that had been building since the attack began. How did they know it was here? This level of intelligence suggests a leak. Hannah finished for him. Yes, someone with high-level access has been compromised. That is why I was assigned to Echo in the first place. Command suspected information was being sold, but they did not know by whom. And now we have 3 prisoners who might provide answers," she said, her expression hardening as she looked at the captured mercenaries. Once we finish securing the base, we can begin asking questions. The next 2 hours passed in organized chaos as they systematically cleared the remainder of the base, neutralizing the last pockets of resistance. 4 more mercenaries were captured and 2 killed when they refused to surrender. By dawn, Base Echo was back under full control, though the cost had been high. 7 military personnel dead, 13 wounded, and significant damage to critical infrastructure. As the first rays of sunlight crept over the mountains, a convoy of vehicles from Central Command approached the base, responding to the emergency signals that Hannah had managed to transmit during the attack. With them came senior officers who would oversee the investigation and recovery operations. Thompson stood with Hannah at the base entrance as the vehicles approached. In the growing light of day, he noticed how she had already begun to reassume her cover identity, her posture slightly less confident, her expression more deferential. "You are going back to being the logistics coordinator, are not you?" he asked, a note of disbelief in his voice. "It is who I am supposed to be," she replied simply. "My cover remains valuable, especially now that we know there is a leak somewhere in the command structure. After what you did last night, my team will never see you the same way again." Hannah considered this, then shook her head slightly. "They will adjust. Soldiers understand operational necessity. Besides, in a few weeks I will probably be reassigned. That is how it works with our program. We do not stay too long in one place after our cover has been compromised." Thompson wanted to argue to suggest that perhaps there was another way, but the approaching vehicles were now close enough that further conversation would have to wait. As the lead Humvee pulled up to the gate, Hannah took a half step back, physically positioning herself as support staff rather than an operational equal. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. By the time the base commander stepped out of the vehicle, Specialist Hannah Rivers, unremarkable logistics coordinator, stood ready to provide an administrative report on damaged inventory and requisition needs. The Shadow Division operative had vanished like a desert mirage, present only in the memory of those who had witnessed her in action. Thompson played his part, stepping forward to brief the commander on the tactical situation while Hannah faded into the background. But as he recounted the events of the night, he found himself glossing over her involvement, describing coordinated team actions rather than identifying her specific role. It was an instinctive protection of her cover identity, done without prior discussion or agreement. When the commander asked who had secured the classified materials, Thompson simply replied, "My team, sir. We were fortunate to reach the vault before it was breached." He caught Hannah's eye briefly as he said it, and though her expression remained neutral, he detected the faintest nod of appreciation. In that moment, Thompson realized he had been inducted into a different kind of unit, not through formal assignment, but through the shared understanding of necessary secrets. The debriefings continued throughout the morning with intelligence officers interviewing everyone who had participated in repelling the attack. When Thompson's team was questioned, they followed his lead, describing coordinated defense actions without highlighting Hannah's exceptional role. The narrative that emerged from their collective testimony was one of standard military response to an attack remarkable only for its success against professional adversaries. By midday, the initial crisis had passed. The wounded had been evacuated to better medical facilities. Repair teams were addressing critical infrastructure damage, and security had been reinforced with additional personnel from Central Command. The captured mercenaries had been removed for specialized interrogation, their equipment seized for analysis. Thompson found himself standing outside the medical tent, watching as the last of the wounded were loaded onto transport helicopters. His arm had been bandaged where the bullet grazed him, a minor injury that required no evacuation. His team had been fortunate, suffering only superficial wounds despite the intensity of the fighting. A tall colonel with intelligence insignia approached, his uniform immaculate despite the dusty conditions. "Sergeant Thompson, I am Colonel Bradley. I would like a word in private." Thompson followed the officer to a quiet corner of the compound away from the ongoing activity. The colonel did not waste time with preliminaries. "I understand your team was instrumental in securing the sensitive materials in the command vault," Bradley said, studying Thompson with penetrating eyes. "Yes, sir. We were in the right position to respond, and you were assisted by a specialist Rivers from Logistics Division." It was not a question, but Thompson recognized the probe for what it was. "Specialist Rivers provided administrative support during the crisis, sir. She helped coordinate our resource needs." The colonel's expression remained neutral, but something in his eyes suggested he was not convinced by the deliberate understatement. "I see. And at any point during the operation did Specialist Rivers demonstrate skills or knowledge inconsistent with her official military occupational specialty?" Thompson met the colonel's gaze steadily. "Sir, every member of this base contributed according to their abilities during the attack. Some people rise to occasions like this in surprising ways." A long moment of silence stretched between them before Colonel Bradley nodded slightly. "Well put, Sergeant. Your discretion is noted and appreciated. He handed Thompson a card with only a phone number printed on it. If you or your team recall any additional details about last night's events, this number will connect you directly to my office. The implication was clear. The colonel knew exactly who and what Hannah was. This was not a fishing expedition, but a verification of operational security. Understood, sir, Thompson replied, pocketing the card. Your team performed admirably under extreme circumstances, Sergeant. There will be commendations. With that, the colonel departed, moving toward the command center, where the investigation was being coordinated. Thompson returned to the barracks area where his team was resting after their debriefings. They looked up as he entered, a new respect in their eyes that had nothing to do with his leadership and everything to do with what they had witnessed the previous night. So, Rodriguez said quietly once Thompson had taken a seat, are we going to talk about what actually happened last night? Thompson surveyed his team, considering his response carefully. What happened was that we successfully defended this base against a coordinated attack by professional mercenaries. Sarge, Garcia began hesitantly. Specialist Rivers, she is not just a logistics coordinator. She is whatever her orders require her to be, Thompson replied firmly. And our orders, which I am giving you now, are to respect her cover and her mission. Nothing that we witnessed leaves this room. Are we clear? The team exchanged glances before nodding in agreement. They were soldiers accustomed to following orders, especially when the reasoning behind those orders aligned with operational security. Do you think she will be reassigned? Patterson asked after a moment. Thompson nodded. Almost certainly her effectiveness here has been compromised. There was a hint of disappointment in their expressions, and Thompson understood it completely. They had glimpsed something rare, a level of skill and capability that few ever witnessed firsthand. To know that such individuals existed within their ranks, hidden in plain sight, was both reassuring and humbling. The rest of the day passed in relative calm as the base gradually returned to operational status. Thompson oversaw his team's responsibilities while keeping a casual eye out for Hannah. He spotted her occasionally moving through the compound with clipboard in hand. Once again, the efficient but unremarkable logistics specialist. The transformation was so complete that, if he had not witnessed her in action, he might have questioned his own memories of the night before. She projected such convincing ordinariness that even knowing the truth, it was difficult to reconcile the two versions of her. As evening approached, Thompson completed his final report on the attack and submitted it to the temporary command structure. His account maintained the agreed-upon narrative, describing coordinated team actions without singling out Hannah's extraordinary contributions. Reading over what he had written, he realized how much was missing from the official record, how incomplete the history would be. He found Hannah in the logistics depot as the sun began to set, inventorying damaged equipment with the same methodical precision she applied to everything. For a moment, he simply watched her work, trying to see if he could detect any trace of the operator beneath the administrator. "Can I help you with something, Sergeant?" she asked without looking up, having sensed his presence despite her apparent focus on the task. "Just checking on replacement equipment for my team," he replied, stepping into the depot. "We lost some gear during the attack." She nodded, making a note on her clipboard. "I have already processed the standard replacement items. They should be available tomorrow morning." The conversation was perfectly ordinary, a routine exchange that anyone overhearing would find unremarkable. Yet underneath the mundane words lay a current of shared understanding, of mutual respect forged in combat. "My team plays cards most evenings in the mess," Thompson said after a brief silence. "Nothing special, just a way to pass the time. You would be welcome to join us." Hannah looked up then, studying his face as if assessing his intent. "Thank you for the invitation," she said carefully. "Perhaps I will stop by." It was neither acceptance nor refusal, and Thompson understood she was leaving her options open based on operational considerations he could not fully appreciate. He simply nodded and turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. "That knife of yours," he said quietly. "The notches, they represent more than operations, do not they?" Hannah set down her clipboard, giving the question the consideration it deserved. Each mark represents a moment when difficult choices had to be made. Some of those choices saved lives, others ended them. The code helps me remember both. Thompson absorbed this, recognizing the weight behind her words. "Will this operation earn a 14th notch?" "No," she replied, her gaze distant. This was defense, not intervention. Different parameters. He accepted this distinction, though he did not fully understand it. "I will see you around." "Specialist." "Yes, Sergeant, you will." Dawn broke over base echo, painting the mountains gold as the dust storm finally subsided. The attack had been repelled, but at significant cost. 8 personnel dead, 15 wounded, and critical systems compromised. A quick response team from Central Command had arrived by helicopter, securing the perimeter and evacuating the most seriously injured. Thompson sat on a supply crate outside the medical tent, watching as his team helped distribute emergency rations and ammunition. They had performed admirably once reunited, following Hannah's tactical guidance without question after witnessing her expertise in action. Together, they had systematically cleared the base, neutralizing the remaining attackers and preventing them from accessing the secure intelligence vault beneath the command center. Now, in the harsh light of morning, Thompson observed as Hannah seamlessly transitioned back to her administrative persona. She moved through the aftermath with clipboard in hand, efficiently cataloging damage and processing casualty reports with the same quiet competence she had shown with supply requisitions. If not for the events of the night, no one would ever connect this unassuming specialist with the tactical operator who had saved countless lives hours before. A Black Hawk landed in a swirl of dust, disgorging a trio of serious-faced officers who headed directly to the command center. One of them, a colonel with intelligence insignia, made brief eye contact with Hannah as he passed. Nothing was said, but Thompson recognized the subtle nod of acknowledgement between them. Later, after debriefing with the investigation team, Thompson found himself standing awkwardly at Hannah's desk. She looked up from her paperwork with a neutral expression that revealed nothing of their shared experience. "I wanted to thank you," he began, uncharacteristically hesitant. "My team would have walked right into their kill zone if you had not." She shook her head once, decisively cutting him off. The message was clear. Shadow Division operatives did not exist officially. Recognition threatened their cover and effectiveness. Whatever had happened during the night would never appear in reports. The dead mercenaries would be classified as insurgents. Hannah Rivers would remain a logistics specialist in all documentation. Thompson understood. Instead of continuing, he placed something on her desk. His personal combat knife, the one he had carried through 4 tours. A veteran's silent acknowledgement of a warrior. No words necessary. He turned to leave, then paused. "Some of us usually play cards in the mess after dinner," he said casually, not looking back. "Nothing special, just passing time." It was not an order or even a direct invitation, just information offered without pressure. A door left open. The mess tent hummed with subdued conversation that evening. Thompson's team had claimed their usual table in the corner, playing cards with the forced normalcy of soldiers processing combat. They laughed too loudly at jokes that were not particularly funny, a collective exercise in psychological decompression. When Hannah appeared in the doorway, conversation briefly faltered. She stood at the threshold, tray in hand, hesitating in a way that seemed genuine rather than calculated. For a moment, Thompson thought she would turn away. Instead, she approached their table. Thompson slid over without comment, creating space. Specialist Garcia, who had fought alongside her during the final push to secure the command center, dealt her into the next hand without asking if she wanted to play. No one mentioned the attack or her role in repelling it. No one asked about her background or training. They simply accepted her presence as if she had always been part of their circle. "You played much poker before, Specialist?" Corporal Rodriguez asked as she arranged her cards. A small smile, possibly her first genuine one since arriving at Echo, crossed Hannah's face. "I know my way around a deck." The game continued, conversations flowing around her. Occasionally, she contributed a comment or question, each interaction slowly revealing small facets of a personality that had been carefully concealed behind professional distance. When she excused herself 3 hours later, Thompson watched her go. The specialist, who returned to duty the next morning, would still maintain her careful boundaries. The nature of her assignment demanded it, but something fundamental had changed. A recognition, however limited, of the person behind the cover identity. As he prepared his team for their delayed reconnaissance mission the following day, Thompson found himself scanning the compound. He spotted Hannah directing a supply offload, clipboard in hand, nothing in her demeanor suggesting anything beyond administrative competence. But now he knew to look closer to notice the way she constantly monitored the perimeter while appearing focused on her clipboard. How she positioned herself with optimal sight lines to all approaches. The subtle bulge at her ankle where a notched blade remained concealed but accessible. He understood now that some of the most important people in any room were those you had been trained not to see. The quiet ones, the watchers, the protectors who served without expectation of thanks or recognition. Hannah caught his gaze across the compound and gave him a nearly imperceptible nod. Not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement. A silent communication between professionals who understood the true nature of their service. Thompson returned the gesture before turning to his waiting team. They had a mission to complete, and they would do so knowing that when they returned, someone was watching their backs, even if the rest of the world would never know her name or the sacrifices carved into the spine of her blade. 3 weeks later, Thompson returned from an extended patrol to discover that Specialist Hannah Rivers had been transferred to another base. There had been no farewell, no opportunity for his team to acknowledge what she had meant to their survival. She was simply gone as quietly as she had arrived 10 months earlier. Her replacement was a cheerful staff sergeant named Martinez, who had never quite mastered the inventory system and was always asking for help with requisition forms. He brought homemade cookies to share and talked constantly about his 3 children back home in Texas. Everyone liked him immediately. Thompson said nothing about the transfer. He understood the protocol and the necessity. Somewhere else at another base or embassy or forward operating position, Specialist Rivers or whatever name she was using now was establishing a new cover identity, becoming unremarkable, invisible, until the moment when invisibility was no longer an option. The only trace she had left behind was Thompson's combat knife, returned to his quarters with military precision. He had found it on his bunk the day she disappeared, cleaned and oiled to perfection. There was no note, no message. None was needed. But when he examined the blade closely, he discovered something that made his breath catch. Along the spine of his knife, positioned so subtly it would go unnoticed by anyone who was not looking for it, was a single precise notch. Not a kill marker or an operational tally. Something different. An acknowledgement between warriors, a recognition of mutual respect earned in combat, a reminder that sometimes the most valuable people in any unit were those who operated in the shadows. Thompson never told his team about the mark. Some knowledge was meant to be carried alone, but he did make one change to their routine. Every evening when they played cards in the mess tent, they left an empty chair at their table. No one ever commented on it or asked why. They simply maintained the space, holding it open just in case,